Before I begin, I want to say thank you for inviting me. I have been here a few times, and I've really come to respect the emphasis here on social action. And I admire what you do and what you stand for. I've also noticed that I've rarely seen the word God written here. But actually, I want to talk about how I've come to understand a word like God and a word like Christ, and how they might connect with your wonderful sense of social action. A little background. Before I go on here, can you hear me okay? This is better? And if I eat the microphone, this is even better. So as Heidi mentioned, I've just finished a book called Christianity Reimagined, a mystical approach for doubters and the dubious. That came up because I'm a doubter. I have gone to church for 9 years now, and I've had intense feelings there. I've often cried. But I've never believed a word of the doctrine. I cannot say the creed. I really cannot say it. It's just not me. I can't believe in God the way most churches do. I've also conducted more than 60 interviews with people kind of like me, people that go to church and have good experiences, but don't believe a word. There are such people. And they're not all going to the UU church either. I call this group mystics on the margins. They're mystics because they have experience. They're on the margins because it's a little hard to talk about what you actually believe with people that are a little more traditional. So we're on the margins. We are on the margins. One of the things I asked all these people was about the word God. It connotes an awful lot. It connotes the fellow that created the world. In the beginning, God created, like a potter, the world and the oceans and the sky. God is also the fellow who watches over us and protects us, and who's on the other end of the telephone line. My favorite line on this was that prayer is like a telephone line that goes to a bellhop in the sky, and the bellhop answers. But none of my interviewees, none of these mystics on the margins, and certainly not me, thinks this, any of it. No one said any of this. So then the question becomes, what do I and what do these people actually mean if and when they use the word God? And to tell you the truth, I've come to believe that most people, most religious people who use the word God actually think like what I'm about to tell you, actually mean what I think they mean. Sorry, that didn't make any sense. So to understand what I mean by this, I want to ask you something. I want to ask you to bring to mind the most meaningful or deepest experience you've ever had. May have been when you were 20 or 30 or a little older. You might have called it a spiritual experience or a non-ordinary experience sometimes. It's an experience in which you saw yourself or another or the world in a way that was above and beyond how you normally think or normally see. Perhaps one came at a time when you were just overwhelmed with beauty. I had one of these not too long ago when it was snowing and the snow was down like mottled on the branches. Perhaps it was a few moments when time seemed to disappear. Perhaps it came when you were on a walk in the woods, when you were struck with the sounds of the birds or the beauty or the dappled sunlight. Perhaps it came in a conversation with a friend, when you were sharing honest, real truths, and the space around you seemed to open out and the walls seemed to kind of disappear. Or maybe when you were overcome with love. Perhaps childbirth was your deepest and most meaningful experience, when you felt not only connected with your baby, but at one with some energy of the world. Okay, now before I go on, can you all think of such an experience? I'm seeing some hands, some nods. All right, good. Now these experiences feel very important, don't they? They almost are life-changing. Sometimes they are life-changing. But the interesting thing is, in these experiences, you feel at your most utterly alive, yes? It's like you're just so present and you're so with it. You feel utterly connected to something or other. In all the reports that I've heard, and I've talked to chaplaincy patients about this, I've talked to my mystics on the margins about this, not one person described seeing a human-like figure. Nobody saw a figure standing beyond their shoulder or something. But rather these are times when your chest opens wide and you seem to be almost vast, calm, peaceful. Yes, am I kind of describing it the way it is? I'm seeing some head nods, yeah? Now here's one of my chaplaincy patients who described something like this. And this patient, her name, I call her patient S. Patient S was in the ICU, and she was quite ill. And she told me, I had an experience of God. And I said, oh, wow, what was that like? And she said, I just felt so peaceful, so calm. Then I wondered, what was there about it that led you to think it was God? And she said, well, when he was with me, I just wasn't worried at all. Not about my diseases, not about dying, nothing. I was so at peace, I just knew. Now, her experience was short-lived, and it was not in the hospital, but she was quite ill. But she felt utterly present, utterly connected. And she felt so peaceful. Now, does she describe something that you're kind of familiar with as you think about these experiences? This feels good. Here's another one, just so you got it. This is from Christina Rathbone, who used to be the minister over at the Grace Church over in Great Barrington. I'd been swimming, she says. The stream tumbles down a little waterfall and opens out into a gorgeous round swimming hole. That afternoon, the entire pool was bathed in a golden light, and the water was flowing fast. I was sitting on a sandbank, tired and happy from the swim. And suddenly, the usual realities of separation and struggles simply melted away, and I was left in a kind of being and at oneness. Whatever it was, that oneness felt incontrovertible and utterly true. And I knew that what I was sensing really was true. It was like dipping into reality. Now, such experiences can happen in a meeting house like this, or they can happen in some unlikely place like her swimming hole, or in a hospital. They can happen in places that are utterly non-conducive to spirituality. But in these moments, don't you feel wonderfully present, at peace, wide open? It's like your ego has just disappeared. You're just there. They're quite wonderful. Yes? My point is that these experiences, or feelings, or senses, it's a little hard to know quite how to describe them, are what people are actually pointing to when they say, I knew God, or God was with me. And it's what they are pointing to when they say, God be with you. Or, let go and let God. I love that phrase, by the way, let go. You hear it all the time in the hospital. Let go and let God. What you do in a moment like that is you let go of your picture of how things are supposed to go, and you just allow yourself to be there. That's what letting go and letting God is all about. The endless theories and implications of the word God, or the notions of the divine, are just endless. God is the King of Kings, the Pantocrator, the fellow who made the creation. But really, in our heart of hearts, all these great and vast images are grounded in, or are in some dim way, pointing to experiences like yours and mine. When someone builds a theory of God, when someone says, God be with you, or Christ be with you, at heart there's always this on-the-ground experiential sense to which they are pointing. To say, God be with you, for example, you're really pointing in your heart, or your chest, or your body, to an experience of one of these deep experiences. In all my interviews, not one person told me that some human-like figure not one person told me about a human-like figure that created reality. Everyone described their experiential sense of something peaceful, wide open, and non-personal. It's more like a field than like a person. And by this I mean, if you think about what it is to feel yourself open, it's like you feel yourself this way. It doesn't feel like you're seeing somebody. Seeing somebody, you focus like this. But being open like this is to be open. It's like your chest opens up or your shoulders open out. And it's like being in a field of reality, yes? Okay, that's what I wanted to tell you about God. So now you know I'm not completely crazy if I use the word God. So when I read to you before, Jesus said, thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your might, and with all your soul. What he's really pointing to is to love this experience, to be one with this experience, to not be defended against this openness. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. It's a very deeply emotional and, if you will, metaphysical way of being. All right, so much for God. Now, since you're all into social action, is it possible to connect this kind of experience with social action? And I think so. To tell you what I mean, I want to tell you a story, and here's where the cheesecake comes in. About 7 years ago, actually about 9 years ago now, I helped a friend bake some strawberry cheesecakes. And they were delicious, if I say so myself. We were taking them to a soup kitchen. That is to say, this cheesecake that I didn't eat. Now, I'd done some charitable work before, but if I tell myself the real truth, when I had offered something in my social action, always in the back of my mind, I had been very subtly looking for something. A thank you, maybe. I'd been looking for admiration. I'd been looking for admiration from, I don't know, the parents in the sky that tell you what you should do. I don't know, something. A sense that I was doing something right. Never did I have the thought consciously that I was looking for something. I never knew that was part of the deal, but it was. I was waiting, if you will, for kudos. I was waiting, if you will, for something back. But that afternoon, at the soup kitchen, when I offered pieces of cheesecake to the men and women in that soup kitchen, For some reason, that need just never came up. I just served them with, I don't know, no expectations. I wasn't looking for a thank you. I wasn't looking for a smile. I just served them. It was only at that moment that I realized how new this was, that I had never given anything to anyone without at least subconsciously expecting something back. But that day, I just served the men and women as I might have my own children. You want a piece? Here you go. Just giving like that, without even subtly expecting anything in return, was profoundly new. And just as surprisingly, it was a gift to me. I felt connected with them at some deep level. And interestingly, serving them seemed utterly effortless, like I wasn't working. I felt absolutely unconflicted, wide open, and frankly egoless. I was just there. Even though I was cutting up cheesecake or dealing with one individual after another, I never lost the sense that afternoon of being wide open, of being present or connected with that sense of peace while I was giving that cheesecake out. How am I doing on time? I could give another example. Okay. I'll give you one more example. Huh? Oh my God, I got a lot of time. But I want to save them time to get to the cheesecake. I'll give you one more example like this. This is from a woman named Penny Curry. Some of you might know her. She's over at Taft Farms. She said, I used to think that I was going out and serving someone. But now I think it's about coming together with someone else, not doing service for anyone, but rather connecting with them. To me now, serving someone is about standing alongside, being with them. Before there was more of a separation, like I'm the holy one and they're the needy one. Quote, I'm doing this deed and I'm serving. But now it's just, how can I serve? What's your story? This kind of service is so much a doing for others. It's not like a subtle transaction the way it used to be for me. It's just a simple act with no ulterior agenda. Rather than seeing ourselves as, quote, the Holy One who dispenses gifts from on high, it's encountering the people we're serving as friends, as guests, as equals. And there's almost no ego in it. Notice I say almost no ego. It's almost impossible to get rid of your ego entirely. Alas. It's remaining as wide open when you serve as when you were on a walk in the woods and sense something transcendent. It's serving without ego. It's offering a simple gift and doing it within or as an expression of our openness to what is greater. So here's my point. When you do your work in the people's pantry or at the multicultural bridge, or when you bring cookies to the coffee hour, I invite you to do so being fully present to it. I invite you, as the Bhagavad Gita put it, to be established in yoga. Remember that? To be established in yoga, established in the sense of the wide openness that connects us all, perform right actions, having relinquished attachments to the fruits of action while remaining unaffected by success or failure. It's such a wonderful, difficult challenge to just do, to just be present, to not look for something while you're doing something because you know that thing that you're doing is right and that's all you need to know. I invite you to do your actions, as my friend Meister Eckhart put it, without caring a jot for how we're coming across, without caring a jot for being recognized, or whether the other is thanking you enough, without caring a jot whether you're coming across as good or virtuous. I'm inviting you to, if you can forgive the G word, I'm inviting you to offer your community service or do your volunteering, being fully open and present, while making room for the loving breeze of the divine openness at your back. Amen.